Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you were watching us earlier, I'm Brian Stewart with MoveOn.
And I'm Alicia Reese, also with MoveOn.
And we are here at our Election Night watch party, where we are going to watch election results with all of you wonderful MoveOn members all across the country. And we're back with announcements. So, well, first, we're a real party now.
Yes, we're a real party now.
We've got balloons, we've got ice cream, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yes.
But first, we have important updates on some of the races in which MoveOn members have endorsed across the country. So first, I'm going to share, we just got some breaking news from our team, and we're here at election headquarters where the MoveOn team is tracking the over 200 candidates that we've endorsed all across the country, just around the corner, feeding us great information. So I'm really excited about this first announcement. This is in Massachusetts 7. These are federal U.S. House announcements. First, I'm going to make MoveOn endorsed candidate Ayanna Pressley has won her race to represent Massachusetts 7 in the U.S. House. So this is really great. She is the first black woman who will represent Massachusetts in Congress. So I think tonight's going to be a night of a lot of historic firsts.
Oh, definitely.
She's one of them.
Yes.
And we're very excited for her. And then I have a second House update. So Jennifer Wexton, who MoveOn members endorsed in Virginia's 10th congressional district, has also won her race. She has defeated incumbent Republican candidate Barbara Comstock. So that's a really important win. That district has been red for decades. That has flipped to blue tonight.
Yes.
I think maybe we're seeing some of this wave.
See, it's working. It's working.
There's like 2 of these waves of my thousands on my shirt that we've got secured now. And we also want to shout out MoveOn Resist and Win leaders in Virginia's 10th congressional district. So that's Lorraine, Kristen, and Kelly. Thank you for everything you and other MoveOn members there have done to help elect Jennifer Wexton to Congress tonight.
Yes.
Alicia, you have some race updates as well.
Yes, I do. So I'm going to be delivering on the U.S. Senate. So we have Bernie Sanders in Vermont, we have Chris Murphy in Connecticut, and these are MoveOn endorsed candidates. We've got Elizabeth Warren, she is in Massachusetts, and then we also have Sherrod Brown, who is in Ohio. So MoveOn has been doing some phenomenal things, and because this is an election night watch party, we are getting news in as we go, and as soon as we get it, you're gonna get it.
That's right. So four awesome progressive incumbent senators re-elected tonight. That's great. And then we've got a couple updates on some of our state and local endorsed candidates as well. So I'm excited to share that MoveOn endorsed candidate Anna Eskamani has won her race for Florida State House in District 47. Wonderful. Anna Eskamani is a former MoveOn intern, actually. MoveOn members were very excited to endorse her in that race. And she's a strong progressive Iranian American. So really excited to see her win that race tonight.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We also have 2 other state house updates. So Summer Lee, MoveOn endorsed candidate Summer Lee, has won her race in Pennsylvania State House for the 34th district in Pennsylvania. And Ram Villavalam in Illinois for the 8th district in the state Senate has also won. All MoveOn endorsed candidates. Thank you to MoveOn members all across the country for supporting those candidates that you endorsed, knocking on doors, making phone calls, helping get them elected tonight.
Texting, everything. You guys really are doing a phenomenal job, and we cannot wait to keep you updated throughout the entire night. Brian and I will be here. Make sure you stay with us, share. We want your friends to watch what you've done to help elect these progressive candidates. Yes.
And if you're sharing, remember to use the hashtag Resist and Win. That's how we're tracking all of the great stuff coming in for you. Our social team is right around the corner too, watching all of your great content. So thank you. Now, you might be wondering why we've got Ben & Jerry's.
Yes, and don't tell my trainer, it's for a good cause.
Okay, we're going to come back to the Ben & Jerry's in a minute. I know we're really excited to dig in here because we're going to cut to our live camera down in Florida where we're watching the watch party for Andrew Gillum, who is running for governor of Florida. We've got MoveOn staffer Reggie Howard there in Florida, and we're going to cut to him now.
Shot said there's a 65% chance that Trump wins Florida, and I knew right there. And the blood did go out of my face. Tonight, there was some hope that the Democrats would have a wave election. It's not going to be a wave election. It could still be a good election. You know, there's a lot of drama left in Florida. Some of the stuff I saw in Texas that Carnegie put up there, particularly Williamson County, I thought was encouraging. But you know, there's still a lot of politics left. But we'll wait and see. Hopefully the Democrats get the House back. I was a little more optimistic about Florida than it's turned out to be, and I think we're going to put a nail bite in a lot of places here tonight.
James, how tough do you think it's going to be? We keep running the number on the right-hand corner of our screen, 21 for the Dems in the House.
Well, I think they're going to do well in some of these suburban seats. You know, they played North Carolina. Some of them, Georgia, would do well. I think they'll pick up in Texas.
James, how tough do you think it's going to be? We keep running the number on the right-hand corner of our screen, 21 for the Dems in the House.
Well, I think they're going to do well in some of these suburban seats. You know, they played North Carolina. Some of them, Georgia.
Is the size of the Democratic majority, if that wave doesn't materialize. But
so you want some margin there. But, you know, let's wait and see. I mean, they still could get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying this is not going to be the wave election that people like me would have hoped for. It can still be a good election, but some of these races are going to be, you know, very tight, and it's still volatile down in Florida. You still got a lot of Broward out, which is, you know, big county. And it'd be hard for Scott to make some of this up in the panhandle, like smaller, but it's going to be close. I went into this morning feeling really almost confident, almost to the point of being cocky about Florida. I no longer have that feeling.
How are you feeling about Georgia tonight, James?
Well, we got to count them. I was just saying, some of these, the vote turnaround in Georgia is going to be so high. You know, in a place like, you know, suburban Atlanta, the Fultons and the Mariettas and all this kind of stuff coming in, they just dwarf a lot of these rural counties. So, I mean, there's a lot of counting left to do. I'm going to be watching it really close. But, you know, we'll see. But right now, you know, Florida Senate is kind of central to what's going on, I think.
In San Francisco tonight, Democratic strategist James Carville. Mr. Carville, it is always a pleasure and an honor to have you with us. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I love that mister. Thank you. Tell my children that. All right.
And he's a proper Southerner, so he should appreciate the honorific. We're coming up on 30 seconds away from the next half hour, the poll closings. We only have the state of Arkansas coming in fresh at 8:30, but we're also going to use this opportunity to update folks on the other races people are so highly interested in and people are waiting for. And Rachel's warning, her admonition at the top of the evening, and it might be a very late night, remains true. That holds even at this hour of 8:30. So here we are. The poll has closed. Polls have closed in Arkansas. We are projecting Governor Hutchinson is handily reelected there. And on to the other two. We're watching Florida, too close to call. Georgia, too early to call. So projected on the side of the building we sit in.
Georgia race again, only 16% of that vote in Georgia. In Georgia, the issue of the administration of the election has been like the other candidate in the race. As we talked about earlier,
live coverage from Florida, Tallahassee, Florida, where crowds of people have gathered, even though it was torrentially raining, to support Andrew Gillum in his bid for governor. You can see a very crowded, very enthusiastic crowd here, basically watching returns that are being run by MSNBC, looking forward to seeing the speakers and
complaints and publicly reported issues in Georgia when there have been concerns raised. Even the federal government about the security of Georgia elections. No
coverage of Andrew Gilliam's.
Former pharma executive Bob Hugin ran an aggressive race, especially in the media markets of New York and Philadelphia. But we are projecting when it's all said and done, Bob Menendez returns to the U.S. Senate from New Jersey.
We should be clear that visual might have confused you a little bit, right? So this is NBC News projecting that, as Brian said, when all the votes come in, Bob Menendez will have won this race. The actual number of votes in and counted right now is only 1%, and those show the Republican challenger ahead. But projections are put together through a lot of things other than just the actually counted votes. So that wasn't a typo, and Bob Menendez looks like he is going back to the Senate.
And Steve Kornacki has new numbers from Florida. Steve?
Yeah, okay, so the gap here right now for Bill Nelson in this race now has climbed over 50,000. I want to show you where the vote is left because it's beginning to come into focus here. In terms of Democrats and where they can still find votes, two places to key in on. Number one here is Broward County.
All right, so you just saw live from the Andrew Gillum rally happening in Florida. We're going to keep trying to connect with Reggie, our staffer who's in Florida, and giving us updates on that race. And, you know, right now we know that it's neck and neck. Andrew Gillum has won a really phenomenal campaign. MoveOn members endorsed him, but people are still in line voting, it sounds like, and it's certainly not over by a long shot. So it looks like we do have a breaking update, another important House win.
Yes, so we have a super important House win, and Rashida Tlaib. Yay! We're super excited.
That's awesome.
Okay, I gotta calm down now. But listen, I am so excited. Our members truly have endorsed just a diverse lot of progressive candidates who are now, many of them, heading to the House and the Senate and in our local and state races.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
And that's really phenomenal. Rashida Tlaib is Michigan 13th District, and she will be one of the first Muslim women in Congress. So we're also tracking MoveOn member endorsed candidate Ilhan Omar, who would also be, those two would be the first two Muslim women in Congress. So really another exciting historic first tonight. So
Absolutely.
Just directly from our team tracking results, right around the corner. Now I do want to come back to the ice cream because our ice cream starting to melt. So you might notice we've got ice cream here. We've got some wonderful Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we eating Ben & Jerry's tonight, Alicia?
So Ben & Jerry's, they ran a phenomenal program with us this particular election season. And what they did is they took 7 of our progressive MoveOn endorsed candidates, and then they had our members vote on the flavors and the names of those flavors for those 7 candidates. So you've got candidates like Lauren Underwood, and hers is called Lauren's Calling.
You also have candidates like Aftab Praval, who the Ben & Jerry's flavor for him is Aftab's Compassion Passion.
Yes, and then you've got Jess King, and Jess's Care for All Caramel, a personal favorite of mine.
And a personal favorite of mine is J.D. Schulten's because he's from my home state of Iowa. And the Ben & Jerry's flavor for him is Jolton Schulten's Grand Slam Homer. So Ben & Jerry, the people, made these 7 flavors with input from MoveOn members. And they're using these pints to help support these progressive candidates.
Oh, yeah.
And then they threw one more in the mix last night, actually. So folks may have seen that last night MoveOn and Samantha Bee, the late night comedian, partnered up for another new Ben & Jerry's flavor.
Yes.
This one's awesome. It's called Get Your Fudgin' Money Out of My Democracy. Get your fudgin' money out of my democracy. And it's all going to support getting money out of politics and, importantly, money out of ice cream, too. But mostly money out of politics. And the cool thing here with the Samantha Bee Get Your Fudgin' Money Out of My Democracy flavor is you can enter to win a pint. How do you do that?
Oh, so you will have to go to our website, type it into your phones now. Just don't leave it live. Just kidding. Use your laptops. Type in MoveOn.org. You can go there, make sure you register to win. All you've got to do is just join us. And then once you join, you'll be entered to win a pint of free ice cream. And what is it called again?
It's called Get Your
Fudgin' Money.
Get your fudgin' money out of my democracy. That's right. A lot of words, but a great message.
Yes, and it tastes great. So.
Yes. Yeah, we should actually probably say what the flavor is, right? The Get Your Fudgin' Money Out of My Democracy is a delicious flavor of maple ice cream, and it has salted walnuts, salted almonds, chocolate coins, and this is the best part, one big foil-covered coin that you need to remove.
Yes.
From that
before you eat it.
Money in Politics ice cream. So as part of this wonderful Ben & Jerry's partnership that we did to support progressive candidates across the country, Ben & Jerry actually made all of these flavors. And so we sent a team to see them making flavors in action, and we're going to watch them make one of those flavors now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Ben.
I'm Jerry.
This election is too important to sit out, so we're helping out the best way we know how.
By cranking up the old ice cream freezer and making a flavor for Lauren Underwood. Lauren's Calling. Underwood for the greater good. Lauren is a registered nurse. Her priority is to expand health care for all. We need a Congress that works for we the people.
So get out and vote for Lauren Underwood.
Just be thankful.
We know he speaks for us. We know he's one of us. We believe, we continue to believe in him, in us, in the power of people. Do not forget that he belongs to us. Now I'm going to tell you something. It's close. It's really, really close. But we got this. We got this. And more importantly, I come to you. I come to you as the Director of Volunteers statewide, as Hispanic Outreach Consultant for the Mayor. And thank you, my Boricuas. I love you for bringing it home. Thank you, Boricuas. But let me tell you something.
Ashley Bryant.
Access to affordable health.
Hello, hello, hello. We are back. That video always gives me the feels. But what we have here is I have the amazing Ashley Bryant. She's the Resist and Win digital storyteller. Now, digital director. Now, we have some amazing things that we've done thus far. Now, we have a focus this election season, and we were so happy that our members not only supported it, but they championed this cause. And that is highlighting and magnifying Black women in this election. How have you played an integral role in that, and what does it mean?
Sure. Well, we've had an amazing momentum this year. I mean, starting with Roy Moore and that debacle in Alabama and the Thank You Black Women. We saw a lot of Black women stepping up and becoming leaders in this space, which that we have been leaders for decades in the movement. Yes. Starting from speaking truth to power, if we talk about Sojourner Truth and those powerful words, and we've had Black women step into their power. So at MoveOn, my role as the federal digital director has been working really closely with our whole team and our members, and really lifting up our members who have joined in this fight with us to invest in our Black women candidates. We've invested over $1 million in our Black women candidates, and so we're hoping to really see that money come into fruition tonight and get some really big wins.
Now, that is, of course, one thing that we are especially excited about here at MoveOn. But what I want to know from you is yes, we've raised the money, and sometimes folks will ask, well, why Black women? So I want to ask you, why Black women?
That's a great question. I think, like I said, again, for decades, Black women have been speaking truth to power, and I think it has really been about the motivation and the willingness to step up and lead this country forward. We don't just invest in our communities, but a lot of times we have more of that passion and dedication to bring the rest of the country with us. And that's what really makes this an important movement, because these women are putting the country on their backs to move us forward, get us back to our true American values. And that's what we're hoping to see here now.
Yes, and we know we've got some amazing candidates that are progressive and that are Black women and who have done some phenomenal things before and now during their races. But now what I want to know is who are you most excited about?
Oh, no, that's too hard. That's too hard. I mean, where we are, we have Lauren Underwood in Illinois 14. We have Stacey Abrams, who we hope is going to be the first Black woman governor in the United States history. We have Lucy McBath in Georgia as well. I mean, there's so many women that we can continue to talk about and lift up, but I'm just wishing all of them the best tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me. This work could not be done without you. So from all of us at MoveOn, thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you to our wonderful members who are really driving home our work.
We shouldn't just be thanking women of color for electing progressive leaders. In 2018, we should be electing women of color as those leaders.
Right now, Congress is 80% one gender and very predominantly one race. And that creates massive blind spots for our legislation. It creates blind spots in criminal justice reform. It creates blind spots in the legalization of marijuana.
When we talk about what's going on at the border, what folks are most concerned about are seeing images of kids in cages.
I believe that our DACA recipients deserve to have the promises of this government kept, and they deserve a path to citizenship.
This country gave us hope. This country allowed for us to develop our own identity and to create our own home. And we shouldn't look down on the next person that's trying to do that.
We need to stabilize the Affordable Care Act. We need to make it more affordable for middle-class families, lower drug prices, and then think about expansion opportunities.
Winning this election will mean that I'll get the opportunity to try to help make sure that more people are covered, that more people have access to affordable health care.
I have the expertise in the economy, in tech, and in business, and I will tell you, if we do not get to single payer, if we do not bring that wealth divide down, we are going to crumble as a country.
We need to fight climate change. We need to move toward 100% renewable energy, and in the process create thousands of jobs for New Mexicans right here in District 1.
I want to make a commitment to my neighbors in the 6th Congressional District. I will work in Washington to make sure the things that they're concerned about, making a livable wage, being able to put food on the table, being able to educate their children so that they're able to compete globally, making sure that women's health care and their rights are protected.
This is the work that I've dedicated my life to, not just my council tenure, economic inequality, the wealth and wage gap, structural racism, calling it for what it is, and gun violence, which is a byproduct of these other social determinants. So this has been the work that I've been doing. This is why I'm running.
Our priorities are dictated by who's in the room and who's at the table. And I think if more women are elected to Congress, that we will start to move towards solutions to some of these problems.
Me being elected is a big message to the whole country that we are part of the government, we are part of society, and that we want to give back just like anyone else.
Incredible work by MoveOn members all across the country supporting Black women running for office this year. We're going to talk more about it in a second, but first I have an exciting update. So my wonderful friend, our dear colleague in the past life at MoveOn, Jo Comerford, has just won her race to be the next state senator in Massachusetts. So, Jo, we love you. Congratulations. So great to see you win your race this evening.
Absolutely. And we've got two more phenomenal wins. We've got Joanna Lopez, and she she had just won Orange County School Board District 2 in Florida.
And also in Florida, House District 49 MoveOn member endorsed candidate Carlos Guillermo Smith won his re-election tonight. So thank you, MoveOn members, for endorsing and supporting him. And congratulations, Carlos, on your win.
Yes.
Now, we were just hearing from Ashley a little bit about the work MoveOn members have done to support Black women running for office this year.
Absolutely.
Let's talk more about that.
So what MoveOn has done in this particular election cycle has been, I mean, when you think about it, you are so grateful because we all know the work that many Black women have done, but many times a barrier to running is money.
Yeah.
You just simply don't have the money. And so what MoveOn did this year is our members decided early that it was going to be a cause that they were going to champion. And they not only said it, but then they put action behind it in raising over $1 million for our Black women endorsed candidates. Now, that's not amazing in and of itself. They also got out to canvass for them. They knocked on doors.
Yeah.
They sent text messages. They joined our Resist and Win leader phone calls. They came to our national training summits to learn how to better tell their own stories in order to recruit even more members to MoveOn. Just some phenomenal things.
Yeah, and actually just this weekend, I was in Georgia joining some MoveOn members to canvass and get out the vote for 2 Black women that we've supported. One, Stacey Abrams, who of course is running for governor in Georgia. We're watching that race. MoveOn members endorsed Stacey early on. And we actually raised over $1 million. MoveOn members actually raised over $1 million for Stacey Abrams alone, directly for her campaign. So incredible race that we're watching tonight. And then I was also in Atlanta over the weekend with our spokesperson, Corinne Jean-Pierre. We were out knocking doors for another wonderful Black woman running for office this year, Lucy McBath, who MoveOn members also endorsed in the northern part of the Atlanta area.
Absolutely.
Running for House tonight. So really a fantastic program.
Yes, really, really and truly is. And what they wanted to, many of our Black women candidates, what they wanted to focus on is much of the work that they did prior to deciding to run. So that's being, you know, school board directors and members, leaders in their particular communities and in their neighborhoods. They've shown all along that they not only have the ability, the sheer will, but also the ingenuity to get things done. So now electing them is literally just the next step.
Perfect. It looks like we have another update. Let's hear that one. Okay, great. Yeah, so MoveOn member endorsed candidate Sarah Inamatoro in Pennsylvania's State House District 21. Sarah, congratulations. MoveOn members in Pennsylvania, congratulations on endorsing Sarah for office. And actually, we have a quote here from a MoveOn member, Lori in Pittsburgh, who said Sarah is a progressive candidate who brings a lot of enthusiasm and personal connection to the issues that MoveOn supports and that she cares about. So congratulations, Sarah, on winning your race tonight, too, and MoveOn members for supporting her. And so we've been talking about our program to support Black women running for office, and I think we're going to throw it now to our colleague, Michael Crawford, who is live in Georgia, where he too, he was with me this weekend, he too has been watching and working for Stacey Abrams and Lucy McBath and helping elect them, and we're going to go to him now in Georgia.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Crawford. I'm on the MoveOn campaigns team. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Hyatt Regency, just outside the Stacey Abrams post-election party. As you can probably see behind me, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of excited Stacey Abrams supporters who are here and ready to find out if Stacey Abrams becomes the next governor of Georgia. So what's super exciting about today is that Stacey Abrams could not just become the next governor of Georgia, she could become the first Black woman to be elected governor in our nation's history, which is something that people have been talking about and are super excited about. Over the last few days, a number of MoveOn staff have been in Atlanta working with amazing MoveOn volunteers to get out the vote for Stacey Abrams and for Lucy McBath, who is running for Congress in the 6th Congressional District. And one of the things that we have heard most often is the importance of both those women, in part because they support strong progressive populist platforms. They will fight for health care for more people. They'll fight for a sensible gun control legislation. But people are also excited here because we have the opportunity to elect two dynamic black women to elected office. So, and while we're here in Atlanta right now supporting Lucy and Stacey, MoveOn has made a big commitment in terms of supporting black women who are running for elected office. So from Ayanna Pressley, who I heard a little while ago, won her seat to become the first black woman to represent the state of Massachusetts in Congress, to Ilhan Omar, who is running for Congress in the state of Minnesota. There are an amazing number of black women who are running for office, and MoveOn members have stepped up in some pretty big ways in order to support those women. So over this election cycle, MoveOn and MoveOn members have contributed about $1.5 million to black women who are running for office, including over $1 million for Stacey Abrams alone. And we did that not just because we wanted to support really strong, vibrant, progressive candidates for office, but in part because we also know that black women are the heart, the soul, the bedrock of the Democratic Party. And in a lot of ways, black women are the vanguard of a multiracial coalition with the potential to transform the country. And after 2 years of Donald Trump in office, we're in desperate need of transformation. And so when we're thinking about those kind of candidates, we're thinking about Jahana Hayes, who is running to become the first black woman elected from the great state of Connecticut. We're thinking about people like Deirdre DeGier, who's running to become the first black woman elected statewide from the great state of Iowa. And so what we've been seeing here today is that people have been waiting in line for a couple of hours to get into the Stacey Abrams post-election party. They have been watching giant TV monitors that have been projecting CNN and showing some of the results. And they've been cheering at the news that at least a few minutes ago, Beto O'Rourke was up, that Andrew Gillum is doing strong in Florida. And so we're super excited to see all the amazing things that are going to happen out of this coming election. And our hopes for a blue wave are still strong because we've seen that voters really care about issues like health care and about gun control and about making sure that there is a pathway for dreamers to stay in the country. And those are the kind of issues that the candidates that MoveOn has endorsed are running on. And so I also want to say that if you are still in line, even though your polls are closed, but you've already been in line, please stay in line because every single vote matters. Earlier today, we were at the Civil Rights Museum here in Atlanta, which has amazing exhibitions that are talking about the long struggle and fight for African American people in this country to win the right to vote, along with other civil rights issues. As an African American whose grandmother was born 46 years before black people got the right to vote, it was especially emotional for me, and that's also why I'm so excited to be here helping to support Stacey and looking forward to her winning her election to become the first black woman governor in the state of in the country. So we are really excited. The energy is vibrant. As you can probably hear, there's lots of chatter running about. We're seeing people walk in from amazing organizations like Black Voters Matter, the Human Rights Campaign, the NAACP. And so there have been a lot of strong progressive groups that have come out to support Stacey, that have come out to support Lucy McBath. And we are super excited to see them elected to office as part of this hope for blue wave that will help to usher in the progressive change that we need so desperately in this country. And as we know, there have been some instances or questions around voter suppression and efforts by Republicans to make it more difficult for people to vote. Now, a lot of these efforts are targeted at folks who are black and brown because, as we know, black and brown people are going to be much more likely to vote for progressive candidates, and Republicans are really boxing themselves in. So as we're thinking about the new American majority, that includes black people, that includes Latino people, that includes Asian Americans, that includes young people, that includes single women and progressive white folks, we know that we are building the kind of coalition that not only is going to help in GOP control of Congress, in particular the House of Representatives this evening, but that's also going to set the stage for us to defeat Donald Donald Trump in 2020 and continue to make the progressive change that we need. So what we've seen from the Republicans and Trump is a continued effort to focus on demonizing people who are different, so people of color, people who are immigrants, people who are Muslim Americans. And what we're seeing right now is that, especially with the large voter turnout, both in terms of the early voters and in terms of the people who are standing in line for literally for hours, is that Americans are tired of the division and the rancor that's coming from the Republican Party, and they are hoping for something that's going to push our country in a much more progressive direction. And so what we're hoping is that people like Stacey Abrams, Lucy McBath, and others will be elected tonight, and we can get down to the really important work of figuring out how we advance Medicare for all so that anyone can see a doctor when they need to, how we can reform immigration policies so that dreamers can remain in the country and so that we don't have some of the fear-mongering that's currently coming from the Trump administration, how we can enact sensible gun reforms that will help to lessen both shootings in public places like schools and movie theaters and churches, but also how we can help to mitigate or stop the violence that is happening in Black and brown communities across the country. And so right now, people are super excited, and you probably hear some of the chatter right now for what's going to happen with Stacey Abrams' race. And as we are waiting for the results to come in, we are super excited, eager, passionate, and desperately hoping that she will be elected the next governor of the state of Georgia, and of course become the first Black woman to be elected governor in our country's history.
Thanks so much, Michael. It's great to see you. Miss you. Hope you're having a great time in Georgia. We're back here at our election headquarters, and I want to talk now to one of our campaign directors, Iram. Hi, Iram. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you, Brian?
Great. Thank you for joining us here in our election watch party, where we're watching all these races come in. Now, one thing we know is that the 200-plus candidates that MoveOn members all across the country endorsed this year represent one of the most diverse endorsement slates in MoveOn's history, and really, you know, as many of them are elected to office tonight, would represent a much more diverse Congress and elected bodies all across the country. So we know that of our non-federal endorsed candidates by MoveOn members, 72% of them are people of color, 8% are Muslim. Because there's such a diverse slate of candidates that we're supporting, we're also hearing about a lot of candidates this year who have faced racist or Islamophobic attacks. And I'm hoping maybe you can talk to us about some of what we've seen there and things that we might want to be paying attention to in terms of monitoring racist attacks taking place across the country on some of our candidates and other candidates as well.
Yeah, definitely. So with the diversity slate of candidates, there have come a lot of attacks. In California, we saw that Duncan Hunter is running what is being considered one of the most anti-Muslim campaigns during this election cycle. Even Washington Post gave him 4 Pinocchios for a really heinous campaign ad that he ran against his opponent, Amar Campanajjar, who is a progressive. And then back in Ohio, we see that Aftab Puraval also faced anti-Muslim attacks. And then there are also candidates who are close enough to being Muslim. They are Muslim adjacent, and therefore their opponents are taking opportunities to attack them as well. One down ballot candidate, Anna Eskamani, who is Iranian American and who won, so great for her and great for the movement. There were actually robocalls that were attacking her for being Iranian, which is really heinous. And the fact that she won shows us that these attacks will fail and will continue to fail. And then in terms of racism and the blatant racism that has shown up in this election, we already know Andrew Gillum was facing racist attacks by Ron DeSantis, who said, you know, Andrew Gillum would, quote unquote, monkey this up. That is a very clear dog whistle and racist attack. And that is because Andrew Gillum is the first Black major party gubernatorial candidate in Florida. And then in New York, we had Antonio Delgado, who was called a quote-unquote big city rapper. Now, that was like another dog whistle to show voters, and especially like Republican voters, like, hey, this guy is black, as if that should make them less likely to vote for Delgado. There was like actually a recent report released that showed a poll where Muslim advocates showed that 71% of voters would said it's actually inappropriate to speak negatively about Muslims. And I'm sure we'll see tonight that these attacks won't actually live up to what they are. We will see a huge diversity of candidates who come into new positions of power and who are able to chart a pathway for this country.
Yeah, thanks, Iram. Thanks for that update. Of course, unfortunate to hear about all of these attacks taking place across the country on some of our candidates and on other candidates. And of course, we also can't ignore that the person at the Oval Office, the person who works from the, well, I don't know if we should say works, the person in the Oval Office
right.
who occupies that space also has really ratcheted up his racist rhetoric in this campaign cycle and in his campaigning and as he was campaigning for candidates around the country. So I think we also have to remember sort of, in addition to these specific attacks, the wave of sort of racist and Islamophobic language and rhetoric that we've seen in some of these races, and look for some of those moments where candidates continue to win and those moments where we can point to where the attacks are going to fail.
Right, exactly. And one thing that I will add to that is using racism isn't necessarily new. Racist attacks have been happening in election years consistently throughout this country's history, and anti-Muslim rhetoric is also not new. So in 2016, Trump tried to, while Trump was campaigning, he called for a Muslim ban, and then when he became president, he actually implemented one. So we also should be mindful that if the candidates who are running on racism win, what are the policies that they will be implementing and how will we fight back against them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us with that update, Iram. And we're going to go now to a video for one of our MoveOn leaders. So all across the country, MoveOn members and Resist and Win leaders have been putting together waves, which are major get out the vote efforts taking place all across the country. And we're going to go and see from one of our wave leaders now.
I consider the civil rights movement my stepping stone into the movement that I find myself in today. My advocacy actually started when I was still in school. I just remember going to school, having to take a school bus to school, but sitting on the back of the bus. I know I'm dating myself, but that's okay. Nothing in that movement was made perfect. But we saw that if we united as a group of people peacefully, we could get things accomplished. And that's what happened. So this is chapter 2 today. What do I do? How do I mobilize people to come on board and understand that if we work together, we can get through this? Because we came through that. I am a retired educator from Texas, and the fact that a large majority of my students were from Mexico, Honduras, and El Salvador. The immigration crisis touches my heart in a way that I sometimes find difficult to explain. You know, I've cried through this process because of the children that were being taken away from their families at the border. My first thoughts were, those could have been my students. And so I knew when it happened, I couldn't just sit aside and do nothing. I immediately went to MoveOn.org and registered an event. I capped that event off at $375. And when I got there were reporters everywhere. I didn't advertise for reporters. They heard about the event and showed up. You know, they want to know who is the leader of this. I said, well, I'm the organizer, I'm the host, I'm not the leader necessarily. And so he said, how many people? And I said, 375. He said, have you looked down the street? I said, no, haven't had time. And he said, there are 600 people here. I said, are you kidding me? He said, they're all the way down the street. There are 600 people here. So our event was written up in the Chicago Tribune. But you know what? It wasn't about the Chicago Tribune to me. It was about people coming out, and I heard them say, this has never happened in this area. This movement, whatever the movement is always bigger than you. So my goal, my thoughts have always been, I've got to do it for the people. It's the way I was raised. You know, it's a community effort to help somebody else. We do have the power as voters, as people, to have our voices heard, to speak loudly and with power, and to go in numbers and get things done. So that's how I perceive the civil rights era, and the movement I find today with MoveOn.org is people power, is voting, is telling others, is bringing people on board, is breaking down those walls of division that we find ourselves in. And we can do that if we remain united.
Phenomenal to hear from leaders like that, and we're going to talk in just a moment about leaders who have been leading waves and organizing all across the country. But first, we have a few important race updates from our team tracking here. I have a Senate update. So MoveOn endorsed candidate Tammy Baldwin has been reelected to the United States Senate. Congratulations, Tammy. Thank you, MoveOn members in Wisconsin. Of course, you may know that Tammy was the first openly gay candidate elected to the Senate back in 2012. And of course, she's in Wisconsin, a state that Donald Trump won in the 2016 election. So a really important state for Democrats and for continuing to advance progressive issues like Tammy Baldwin has done. I also have two state-level candidates that I'd like to call out as well who just won their races. So MoveOn member-endorsed candidate Patty Minter was just elected to the State House in Kentucky, representing the 20th District. And Murphy, MoveOn member Murphy from Bowling Green, says that Patty is an educator and understands why Kentucky needs to fix the way it treats its public employees. And knows how to build coalitions and work with business and community leaders to fight for progress. So congratulations, Patty, and MoveOn members in Kentucky who are working for her. And then also in Georgia, Park Cannon was just elected. MoveOn member Park Cannon was reelected to State House for the 58th District in Georgia. And Park Cannon has been a wonderfully progressive candidate. And Charles from Atlanta says that voting for a Democrat is not enough. We have to end business as usual politics and get representation that will fight for the people, not corporate interests. And that's why he was excited to endorse Park Cannon in that race. So congratulations to those endorsed candidates. And thank you, MoveOn members, for the work you've done to support them. And now I want to bring in my friend Chris Percy, who is one of our regional organizing directors here at MoveOn. Hi, Chris. Thanks so much for being with us.
Of course. I love, this is what I live for. I am so excited about tonight. I am super ready to win. Yes. And so I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. We just heard from one of our wave leaders in that video, one of our Resistant Wind leaders who's been holding waves. Tell us a little bit about the Resistant Wind program and what those waves that we're hearing about were.
Yeah, so we have run a wonderful program that has empowered people throughout the country in over 100 congressional districts to get out and take charge of their communities, to really make their voices heard. And so people like Evelyn that you saw in that video, who I have been working with, shout out to Evelyn, have stepped up and have hosted events at campaign offices, have knocked on doors, have made phone calls, and really have stepped up. And not only have they done that campaign work, but they have engaged people in their communities to do the same, right? So for many of them, they have never done this work before. They have never engaged like this before. Some of them have never even voted, and they are out there really doing the hard work of the campaign. So I'm so super proud of all the work that they're doing so far.
Yeah. Incredible MoveOn members, and you noted some of them haven't even voted yet, and that's because we're seeing that some people as well who are not eligible to vote because they're not yet 18, right? So we've got some 17-year-olds who are involved in the MoveOn Resistant Wind program helping support progressive candidates, which is awesome.
Oh, yes. So I have one of my leaders whose name is Raymond. Raymond is currently at Lauren Underwood's office right now doing a ton of work, has been there all day, got an excused absence from school. From school to go and knock on doors, to make phone calls. He's super excited. He can't vote yet, but he's waiting for the party tonight. And he's just like living on cloud like 9. And I'm so it hardens you as an organizer to see people get engaged in a way, and he can't even partake in it, right? And so it gives you energy in these times. It gives you faith and hope that we're going to be all right. And so I'm really, really proud of the work that folks are doing, and they're doing it organically, right? They have been they look for us to come do this work. So I really am proud of some of the leaders that we have.
Yeah, and when you talk about resist and win leaders, you've also done a fantastic job, you and our MoveOn field team, of training these leaders. So tell us a little bit about what skills a resist and win leader has, and how these resist and win leaders might continue to engage and organize in their communities after the results tonight.
So one of the things that I love about being an organizer and teaching organizers is learning personal stories, right? And not just personal stories, but how you take your story and relate to other people. And so one of the biggest skills that we taught folks was, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is, no matter what your socioeconomic status is, you have a story that is relevant to somebody. And so through the program that we ran, we taught them how to use that as an organizing tool, how to go and to relate to people where they are, and just bring them into the fold, right? And it's been really fruitful seeing people. I remember being at our summit, and one of the leaders said to me, "But I don't think I've been through anything." And I said, "I promise you, if you give me about 60 seconds, I could tell you about 10 things that you've actually been through that will relate to somebody else." And by the end of that conversation, just really 1 minute, she's like, "Oh my God, I do have a story." I'm like, "Honey, we all got a story." And we all can relate to somebody. So it is really important to take those skills, those everyday things that folks bring with them, and use that to relate to other people.
Yeah. And I was at that summit that you talked about. So that was a phenomenal training summit that you held for MoveOn members, for Resist and Win leaders. The first of its kind in many, many years, where we brought folks together a few months ago and really gave them an extensive training. And you talk about using your own experiences and your own identity or experiences to organize. Can you talk about some of the issues that people have been organizing around this year? I know healthcare has been big for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, no, definitely healthcare. I think a lot of folks have so many different stories that all relate to wanting healthcare, and healthcare really does boil down to peace of mind, right? And so usually when I talk to people about healthcare and the leaders share their stories with me, usually what they're saying to me is like, "I just want to be able to live my life and not worry all the time that I might get sick. I want to live my life and know that my pre-existing condition will be covered. I want to live my life and just know that my children will be okay." And so usually, yes, it is things like healthcare, it is things like the economy, but folks just want to be okay, right? And so usually when I'm talking to my leaders, they're just like, "I just want to be okay. I just don't want to deal with this. I don't want to have to worry about it. I want a country that knows who I am and can really honor me as a person." So that's definitely something that I've been saying.
Great. And I think we have an update here from our team. Looks like an important win, so I want to announce that. We have another House candidate to announce. So Jesus Chuy Garcia has won his race. That's the Illinois' 4th Congressional District. And obviously Chuy has been fighting for progressive change in Chicago for decades. Daniel, MoveOn member Daniel from Chicago, noted that Chuy has a proven record of fighting for progressive change and taking on corporate Democrats, believes in protecting people in our planet and not the profits of a wealthy few. So congratulations to Chuy Garcia, MoveOn member endorsed candidate. Congratulations to all of our members in Illinois who helped support him. And now we're going to head to Florida, to the Andrew Gillum headquarters, the rally taking place for Andrew Gillum, who is running to be the next governor of the state of Florida, and our colleague Reggie there.
Hello, MoveOn World from Tallahassee, Florida. We good? I'm on the campus of Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, but no one calls it Florida Agricultural and Mechanical. For those that's known as FAMU. FAMU Rattlers Strike. FAMU is the alma mater of Andrew and Joy Gillum, and it's the only public historically black college in Florida. If I look tired, it's because I was actually here at FAMU last night for a Get Out the Vote concert with Puffy Combs and Migos and other hip-hop all-stars. Drove to Tampa, caught a morning flight back to Miami, and then now I'm back in Tallahassee for this party, for hopefully a victory party here for Andrew Gillum. All the day's work, and it kind of brings me back to my Florida political roots. I'm Reggie Hubbard. I'm the MoveOn Washington, D.C. coordinator. But 12 years ago, I was a senior travel aid strategist and bodyguard for the Jim Davis for Governor campaign in Florida. I traveled all 67 counties and spent 18 months of my life in Florida. I drove 50,000 miles across the state. Florida took a bite out of me, but, you know, it also has been a beautiful place for me as well. My home base was in Tampa. I spent time all over this beautiful, complex, frustrating, amazing political animal that is Florida. It was on that campaign that I met Andrew Gillum. He was then a young city commissioner, and he was one of our top surrogates. He has worked his way up to mayor of Tallahassee, and he's knocking on the door of the governor's mansion. I've been proud of Andrew for over a decade. I'm proud of the race he's run. I'm proud of the energy he's put forth in sharing his vision for Florida. And not only am I proud, but you can see behind me, people are cautiously optimistic about what's happening here. You've probably heard this before. Florida is unpredictable. Is it red? Is it blue? What shade of purple is it? Maybe it's fuchsia. No one knows. And that's kind of what we're here. I mean, it's going to go to the wire. That's just how Florida goes. Like, if you win a race in Florida by 2 points, you destroyed somebody. Like, no one wins Florida in a blowout. That's just not how it goes. I got here late today, and what I'm told is that I missed a torrential downpour. But that doesn't seem to have dampened spirits, and that definitely hasn't dampened turnout. There are a lot of people here. People are holding tight and waiting for returns to come in across the state. About 70% of returns have come in. But again, as a Florida veteran, the one thing I know is that we always wait on South Florida. So that's Broward. Palm Beach is in, but Broward and Dade County, where the lion's share of population is and the lion's share of Democratic progressive outreach is, those votes still have to come in. And people are optimistic about that. You know, Florida's always full of surprises. And speaking of surprises, Second Chances Florida, the initiative Amendment 4, is projected to pass with 64% of the vote. What's beautiful about that is that initiative reenfranchises 1.4 million people. Should I go? Keep going.
Campaign Regional Political Director Vincent Evans.
Right. Right. And we'll come back.
Fired up?
Yep.
Fired up? I can't hear you. Fired up? Welcome to the campus of the historic.
All right. Thank you, Reggie. Great to hear from you and what's taking place in Florida. Of course, we're watching that very closely, and thanks for keeping us updated. So we want to recap some of the House candidates that have won their races, MoveOn member-endorsed House candidates that have won their races tonight. Of course, we're watching the House very closely as we work to end Republican control of the House. We know that in the time that Republicans have controlled the House, they've voted dozens and dozens of times to end the Affordable Care Act, take away pre-existing conditions, and it's time to end GOP control of the House. Tonight, blue wave, we're ready for it. And we've got 4 great waves to share, to recap. So I just shared with folks a minute ago, if you were tuned in, that in Illinois' 4th House District, Jesus Chuy Garcia has won his election to the U.S. House. And so thank you, MoveOn members in Illinois who have supported him. In Michigan, the 13th District, Rashida Tlaib won her race. So Rashida Tlaib will be the first Muslim woman in United States Congress. Congratulations, Rashida Tlaib. Congratulations, MoveOn members in Michigan who supported Rashida. Thank you for all the work that you did. We have 2 more.
Yes, 2 more phenomenal,
recap.
Fantastic and sensational candidates. We have Ayanna Pressley, and she is the first Black woman to be elected to the Massachusetts Congress. Super, super excited for her, and that's in Massachusetts District 7.
To the House from Massachusetts,
to the House from Massachusetts 7. And then we've also got Jennifer Wexton, who is now Virginia District 10. She is also MoveOn member endorsed and has been elected to the House.
So 4 really great, awesome MoveOn member-endorsed candidates going to the House of Representatives after their elections tonight. Now we're going to take a moment to share a few other bits of information that we have. And one thing I wanted to share, Alicia, is we just got some new data back from some research that we've been doing at MoveOn. We just got this back tonight. So these, I think, are really useful data points to share. So the group of Democratic candidates that are running this year, MoveOn member endorsed candidates as well as other Democratic candidates, are the most diverse progressive group of candidates that we have ever seen. So on a few particular notes here, in 2010, only 13% of candidates running for Congress as Democrats supported Medicare for all. 13% in 2010. This year, it was 61% of Democratic candidates supporting Medicare for all. So many of the MoveOn member endorsed candidates that we're talking about tonight supported Medicare for all. We'll call that out,
And then
as
now
noted.
it's what, 19% had an F rating?
That's right.
Now it's 52.
From the NRA?
Yeah, from the NRA, and now it's 52% of them. So that means we have even more folks who are willing to stand and say this is not okay.
Exactly. So standing up against gun violence, against efforts by the NRA to prevent common sense measures to end gun violence. So that's incredible to see. And also the percentage of Democratic candidates who are women has more than doubled from 2010 to today, to the candidates who are running this year. And there are a lot more people of color running for Congress as well than there were in 2010 or 2014. So what we're really seeing here, our research shows that there is really a generational shift taking place in who we're electing to represent us in Congress and the kinds of values and issues that those candidates represent and hold close to them. So really important.
Yeah, we really want to see a Congress that looks more like the people it represents, right?
Absolutely.
That's the whole thing of it all. We want to make sure that those who are creating laws look a lot like the rest of us. But now we want to go back to Florida with Reggie because he's got some exciting things that he's sharing there. So we are going to go back to him and then we'll come back and see you.
Hey, back in Tallahassee at the campus of FAMU. Like I was saying, it's not Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. This is FAMU, home of the mighty Rattlers.
The statewide story
Right.
continues to be. We can just show you here.
So Florida's never a dull moment, and we were talking about surprises. You know, one of the surprising and beautiful things that has happened tonight is second.
Some folks are coming no more out of Palm Beach here, but take a look.
Essentially drives the heart and the stake of Jim Crow. Second Chances Florida will re-enfranchise 1.4 million Floridians who have paid their debt to society. Florida used to have this. That's so beautiful to say used to have. I was one of the key consultants on that race for MoveOn. Well, if you paid your debt to society as a convicted felon, Florida, you would lose your right to vote for the rest of your life. That is no longer a reality. That's I'm actually pretty emotional about that. I put a lot of work and effort into that. And as a black male with Southern roots, the fact that we helped kill Jim Crow here in Florida, I couldn't be happier about that. So Florida's full of surprises. You know, I can't tell you how major this is. This is good for democracy, regardless of politics. And you know, there's a phrase in politics that makes strange bedfellows. This is probably the only issue where the Koch brothers and MoveOn will be lockstep. So the Koch brothers supported Amendment 4. MoveOn, other members of the Progressive Coalition, Amendment 4 has passed. That is a beautiful thing. So we really, like I said, Florida will go until late in the night. Like I said, no one wins in Florida. If you win by 2 points in Florida, that is a blowout. Votes are still out in Broward and Dade County. Those were the strong Democratic strongholds. We feel really strong about that. But, you know, we just don't know. We're still cautiously optimistic. And that's what's going on here in Tallahassee. Back to y'all.
Chris, we're within 100 votes. The tie is so close in terms of what we're seeing right now between Cruz and O'Rourke. We're also seeing the Texas governor's race has already been called very early for Greg Abbott. I don't think Chris can hear me. I can tell by the hand motion.
Yeah, I mean, it is very loud here, and there's lots of people streaming in. The Texas Democrats continue to feel pretty good about where things stand, particularly as it pertains to their House races, which again are sort of important bellwethers for.
Scanlon?
All right, so thank you, Reggie. Really exciting news from Florida there. Second chances passes, so really exciting news. Of course, we know that over 6 million people in the United States have permanently lost their eligibility to vote because of a past felony conviction. And Florida, actually, Alicia, accounts for 25% of those folks. So more than 1.6 million people in Florida who have been permanently excluded from voting despite completing their terms of their sentence and having having paid their debt to society in full. So really an important measure and really exciting to see that pass in Florida tonight, restoring the right to vote to more than 1 million people, more than 1.5 million people who should have the right to vote.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all about giving folks a second chance, because at some point in time, we're all going to need one, right?
That's right. That's absolutely right. Now, I think we have another House update that we just got from our team here.
So who is it?
Yes, so we have another House update. So congratulations to MoveOn member endorsed candidate Mary Gay Scanlon, who has won her race in Pennsylvania's 5th Congressional District. So she is going to the House, and I want to call out Resist and Win MoveOn leaders, Abu, Ryan, and Morris. Thank you, Abu, Ryan, and Morris, amazing MoveOn members in Pennsylvania who have been organizing people to go out and vote for Mary Gay Scanlon.
Truly remarkable.
So truly remarkable, incredible, and it looks like we now have 5 MoveOn member endorsed House candidates who have won their elections tonight.
Yes.
5 little waves. I feel like I'm really into my shirt. I feel like we gotta like color in the waves or something.
We should
or
like highlight which ones.
Yeah, they should light up like this. Here's Mary Gay Scanlon going to the House. So 5 awesome MoveOn member endorsed candidates.
Rashida Tlaib is right here.
Rashida Tlaib, yeah, going to the House of Representatives.
And we've got
one more from our team tracking.
Yes.
Awesome.
So we now have Veronica Escobar. She is going to the House representing Texas District 16. So she is actually the first Latina in Texas who will be going to the House. So we are super excited about that. We told you before, we're going to keep telling you again, this particular batch of candidates that are progressive, they truly are the most diverse in not only MoveOn's history, but in the history of our country. So I'm so excited to see not only who else wins, but the amazing, phenomenal, remarkable, and sensational work that they are going to do once they are in office.
Absolutely. And Alicia, actually, of the 100+ candidates for the House, for the U.S. House that MoveOn members endorsed across the country this year, 71% of them are first-time candidates. Yes. So that's really incredible to see how MoveOn members have supported first-time candidates to the House this year.
It really has. And also, the former intern who used to work for MoveOn, it really does show what happens when you are not only given the tools to go out and make and effectuate change in your communities, but what you can do once you know that it's possible for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're going to take a little break now. We've got lots of exciting news coming in. As you see, our team is around the corner here. You've heard from some of the wonderful MoveOn staff already tonight. Don't go anywhere, though, because we've got lots of staff coming up. You've heard a little bit about our Real Voter Voices program, which is phenomenal. We're going to talk about that soon. And we're going to keep bringing you race updates the minute we have them. As soon as these MoveOn member endorsed candidates are announced to us, we'll share them with you. So,
and one more thing that I absolutely cannot wait to tell you about is we will also be interviewing our mobile director, and he's going to talk a lot about how we got 35 million. Is that right?
35 million. 35 million. Peer-to-peer text messages. And those were sent by more than 1,500 volunteers on our MoveOn text team who are spending their time texting people all across the country. There's actually a great piece in The New Yorker, if you want to read more, that talks about MoveOn's text messaging program.
Absolutely.
And it's called The Resistance is Mobile.
Yes.
And we know it is.
It really is.
We know it is. So we're going to take a short break. We will be back soon with all of that and more announcements on MoveOn member candidates. And we're going to leave you with some messages about some of the Black women that are running for office this year that MoveOn members have championed and endorsed. So we'll see you soon. Don't go anywhere. It's the Blue Wave at MoveOn Election Headquarters.
Oh, yeah.
Black women have always been at the forefront of saving democracy and transforming it. If people haven't gotten that by now, I don't know where you've been or what cave you've been living in.
Because Black women have always led when it comes to cutting edge, doing something different, being authentic, really setting the path. Black women have done that.
Black women are leading in their families, their communities, in their homes, in their neighborhoods. The level of volunteerism, the level of entrepreneurship is so high in the Black community.
the reason that Black women participate at this level is because it impacts us. We need to be able to support our families, we want to be able to support ourselves, and we want to live in communities that do have access to the American dream that everybody talks so fondly about.
There have been times when Black women's voices are really heard and respected within the broader progressive movement, but there's so much work to do to make sure that not just Black women, but everyday people get a chance to sort of influence policy, get a chance to talk about their vision for what they want their lives to be.
Are the people who Black women voted into office, are they, right? Are they showing their gratitude by pushing the policies and legislation that is going to help rather than harm Black women? And from the last time I checked, no.
An agenda that reflected the priorities of Black women would look like a bold, multiracial, populist agenda. It would talk about universal health care, about ending mass incarceration, universal child care and paid family leave, the right to collectively bargain on the job, and addressing environmental injustice, about winning debt-free college and eliminating existing student debt.
There's something inherently heart-centered and people-centered in the way that we build coalition with one another, and we approach this work, I think, with more of a community perspective.
You can't really talk about issues that affect people of color if you don't have people of color leading it or being at the forefront or including them at the table.
You can't support Black women's leadership and try to defang it, de-radicalize it, sort of sanitize it. You can't support Black women's leadership and try to sort of make it very individualistic. It has to be holistic and sort of community-oriented.
There has been no movement in the United States that has been successful without the active participation of Black women. So we could keep saying identity politics are splitting us, but I think what we're actually seeing is that when we pay attention to the unique experiences of Black women, for example, that it motivates and activates us to be even more amazing politically and electorally than we already are.
We'll all be like #winning, right, if we follow and support Black women.
Outside.
Let's